Hello, welcome back to Mrs. Torres's YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about Pythagorean Theorem. Whoops, sorry, got an email. Pythagorean Theorem says a squared plus b squared equals c squared. What that really means is if we have a right triangle, let me make that bigger. If we have a right triangle, A and B represent the legs, and C represents the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the longest leg of your triangle. It's always across from or opposite of your right angle. So if we take the length of this leg and square it and add it to the square of the second leg, you will always get the square of the hypotenuse. So here C is the hypotenuse. Let's look at this triangle over here. Let's say this leg is 7 inches. This leg is 9 inches. I want to look for the hypotenuse. Well, we can use Pythagorean theorem. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The legs are 7 and 9, so we're going to plug those in for A and B. So we have 7 squared plus 9 squared equals C squared. 7 squared gives you 49. 9 squared gives you 81 equals C squared. Next, we've just got to add 49 and 81. 49 plus 81 will give you 130. So 130 equals C squared. Now, we want C all by itself without, or X in this case actually, without the squared. So we've got to remember, what's the opposite of squaring something? That is your square root. So C equals the square root of 130 inches. Now we're almost done, but not quite. There's 2 ways that I'm going to ask for your answer. The first is in simplest radical form. That's what we talked about yesterday. So we take 130 and we do our factor tree. And we end up with 13, 2, and 5. There are no pairs, right? So that means there's nothing to take out of our radical. So our answer is just the square root of 130 inches. So that's this side here is the square root of 130 inches, the hypotenuse. The other way is the rounded or approximate answer. So this is going to be a decimal. So in your calculator, you just type in the square root of 130 and round it to the nearest tenth. So 11.4. So either of those answers are correct. So that's the Pythagorean theorem. We're going to skip Pythagorean theorem and area for now. And we're going to talk about the converse. Remember, the converse is just the opposite. So Pythagorean theorem says if we have a right triangle, then a squared plus b squared equals c squared. The converse says if a squared plus b squared equals c squared, then we have a right triangle. So we're going to be able to figure out if these are right triangles. So we have a triangle here. Our sides are 15, 8, and 17. How do we decide which one is the hypotenuse or possible hypotenuse, right? Because we don't know if it's a right triangle yet. It's always going to be the longest side. So 17 is our longest side, so that's going to be our C. And then the legs, it doesn't really matter. Those are interchangeable. So we've got 15 squared plus 8 squared equals 17 squared. Now, we don't know if it's true yet, so we're going to put a little question mark over top there. Then we just got to do the math and see if it's true. So 15 squared is 225 plus 8 squared is 64. 17 squared is 289. And our last step, add them together. 289 does, in fact, equal 289. So, yes, this is a right triangle. Next, let's change this guy to 11. So we've got a triangle. Let's find out if it's a right triangle. Which is our biggest side? 11. So that's going to be our hypotenuse. So we've got 8 squared plus 6 squared. Does that equal 11 squared? Well, let's find out. 64 plus 36. Does that equal 121? This is 100. Those are not equal, right? So to say 100 does not equal 121, we put a little slash through there. So no, that one is not a right triangle. All right, that's it for today. See ya.